Hey everybody, Adam Lowy here with Move for Hunger, and I'm here today with a good friend, Alexandria Coari, Vice President of Capital Innovation and Engagement at ReFed. And today we're going to talk a little bit about sustainability, but specifically food waste. It's a major issue in the United States and globally, and Alex at ReFed really is leading the charge. This organization does really cool things. So Alex, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you tell our listeners, what is ReFed? Who are you?
Absolutely. That's a great place to start. So ReFed is the only national nonprofit here in the US that is wholly dedicated to accelerating data-driven solutions to food waste. So we spend all day and all night thinking about the topic of food waste, understanding the problem, and then really focusing on what are the best solutions that can get us to reducing food waste by 50% by 2030, which is this global and national goal that we all have.
Super ambitious goals and super needed. In the United States alone, 35% of the food produced ends up in landfills. Can you share a little bit about where food waste comes from and why it's such an important issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So, according to our analysis at ReFed, which is a lot of what we spend our time doing, understanding the problem, the majority of food waste is happening at the household. So a little bit over 37% of food waste that currently is happening across the country, of which there's a total of 80 million tons of surplus food right now, is happening in the household. So the implications of that are huge, because as you think about food moving from farm across the supply chain, all the way from manufacturing to restaurants or retailers up into the household, that's a ton of greenhouse gas emissions that's happening, that ultimately that food is being thrown away. There's a lot of natural resources that are going into the production of that food that ultimately isn't being eaten. And that's really a shame, because as we think about other issues that we're facing as a society, we've got a ton of people, for instance, that are also food insecure and are hungry on a daily basis. And so it's such a shame that we've got this dichotomy of a surplus of food that is happening. We're throwing a ton of it away. All at the same time, we're facing these critical issues as a society with hunger, homelessness. We've even got climate change happening. And so there's this real opportunity, I think, to be addressing food waste, not just at the household, which, yes, there is a huge amount of waste that's happening there, but all across the supply chain, from farm to manufacturer, retailer, food service, and restaurant as well.
It's crazy. I don't think a lot of people think of that full food system. Typically you go to the grocery store and your food is there. And maybe you can think one layer past that about the food being delivered, but there are so many different places along that supply chain, if you will, where the food actually can spoil or go to waste.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Financially, it doesn't make sense for people to waste food, whether it be, at the farm level, at the corporate or grocery store level. Like, what is the financial implications of, big companies wasting food?
Yeah. Again, according to our recent analysis, 35% of food is currently going uneaten or unsold. And the financial impact on society is actually $408 billion a year here in the US. So that's a ton of potential consumer savings that we could be having if we weren't wasting food. It's business savings, which are super important, because we all know that the food service, restaurant, retail business are really small margin business. Just a ton of money that's being thrown away by growing, transporting, processing, and just tossing that food or letting it go to waste before it can even get to people for the original intended purpose, which is to get in our mouths, or to those in need, or even composting and recycling of that food. So huge financial implications. Really, it makes no sense. And in theory, there should be huge alignment in terms of incentives in saving those dollars so they're not going to waste, and obviously making the best use of the food that we grow for its original intended purpose.
It's smart business. I mean, are you seeing any exciting solutions coming down the pipeline right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Just today, in fact, a food waste solution provider, Mori, which is a shelf life extension technology, just raised tens of millions of dollars to keep expanding their shelf life extension technology in the food space. And so we're really excited about solutions like that, including Appeal Sciences, which of course is kind of this food waste unicorn in the sector. But outside of that, I think top solutions that we've seen in our analysis, some are high tech, some are low tech. So from like a greenhouse gas emissions perspective, one of the top solutions that we can be doing as a society is really addressing portion sizes. In fact, a ton of food that is going to waste at food service and restaurant actually happens post-consumer. So they're getting a lot of food on their plates. Unfortunately, we're not eating all of the food. There's a little bit of a misaligned incentive perhaps in terms of restaurants wanting to kind of charge as much money, but then consumers not being able to eat that food. But if we were able to address that portion size issue, we would really be having a huge impact on greenhouse gas emissions. Now, some more high-tech solutions, seeing AI-enabled demand planning in restaurants and also retailers. You've also got waste tracking and analytics software that's out there. And then even on the recycling side, some really sophisticated solutions to the conversion of inedible product into fertilizers or into compost that ultimately is going circular back into making our soils more healthy and reducing some of that carbon emission, acting as a sink. So a lot of great solutions, a lot of money and investment coming into the space to help these solutions scale. We're really excited to see that continue because at ReFed, according to, again, our analysis, we found that in order to get us to that 50% reduction goal, we're going to need to have about $14 billion of investment annually into viable solutions. And so a lot more money needs to come into this space, but there's a ton of opportunity, a lot of new solutions that can use that capital to have the impact that they're looking to do.
And it's cost saving. So it sounds like a big investment here, but ultimately it's going to not only pay for itself, but from an environmental standpoint, it's going to be saving, tons and tons of greenhouse gas emissions from getting out there. So it's so fascinating.
We found that for this $14 billion annual investment, we're talking more than $70 billion in net societal economic benefit. So it's a 5-to-1 return. The math makes sense. It's just, we really need to continue to work on aligning the incentives across all of the actors in the supply chain, because as you pointed out correctly, Adam, there's a lot of parts to our food system. There's a lot of individual players, but ultimately, it's hard to, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who likes wasting food. So in theory, we're all on the same page about this and wanting to solve the problem.
For those listening today, like what can we do in our own homes? Like what could I do starting tomorrow to begin to reduce food waste?
Yeah, there's a lot of simple things that people can be doing in their homes. I mean, in terms of meal planning and meal prepping, that's a huge opportunity. Dana Gunders, our executive director at ReFed, has actually written a book on the topic of how to fight food waste from, an individual perspective. And there's a ton of recipes in that book. In addition, I think shopping your fridge, right? Having nights of the week where, okay, I'm going to go shopping at my fridge and I'm going to make some sort of a dish out of all the ingredients that I find. Our partner Hellman's actually has a great new campaign out, Make Taste Not Waste, essentially. Looking in your fridge, seeing what you have, trying to be creative in making new dishes, and having some dishes that are kind of your go-tos. You're always gonna have a little bit of extra cilantro because you always buy that, or you're gonna have a little bit of extra, some other commodity or ingredient often. So have a couple dishes that are kind of your go-to use cases for that extra product. And then besides that, freeze. Your freezer is your friend. Throw your scraps in there, prep meals and throw them in your freezer so that you're able to kind of have them portioned out. And it's really easy to eat when you need during the week and you might be feeling a little bit lazy one night. So
these are all really great and really simple tips, right? And I know there's so many more that we didn't even cover. You guys are doing some incredible research. You've got some incredible just impact and stories. We're very grateful as you've been a supporter of ours and Move for Hunger for a while. Where can people go and learn more about the work that ReFed is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome anyone and everyone to come to our website, which is refed.com. We just in February actually launched all new research, data, and insights on the topic of food waste called our Insights Engine, as well as our roadmap to 2030. So it really outlines how we can actually get to reducing food waste as a society by 50% by 2030. Tons of new data, insights, a whole list of 40 plus solutions that are happening right now that need funding, that are working to be adopted by food businesses. So encourage everybody to visit our website and check that out and use the tool. It's all free to everyone and anyone. So please do share that as well. And we're always here to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate everything you do. And please, everybody, learn more about food waste and how you can stop it.
Awesome. Thanks.